Hey guys, welcome to the American Tribune. I am Todd Peterson. Thank you for joining today. As always, we are a live show. Welcome the comments. Welcome aboard. Welcome on YouTube, by the way. We got some house cleaning to do before we get into the show. Number one, you can probably hear it. I am feeling it. It is cold in Minnesota. Kids are at daycare with the sniffles, so we're down with something over here. But we're going to power through. We'll be just fine. It is what it is. But if anything goes wrong, I'm blaming the cold today. I'm also blaming our StreamYard studio where we podcast from. They've had some audio issues today. So if you have troubles with the audio, you try to listen to the recording later and you just see my mouth moving and you don't hear any words, it's not us, it's them. So they're trying to work through that issue as well as we get going. But YouTube, we did a show last week. We covered Anthony Fauci's potential. Right now it's a potential preemptive pardon from Joe Biden. Of course, why would you need a pardon if you're not guilty? So I think we're implying some guilt on the part of Anthony Fauci. Yes, he should be investigated by the Trump administration regardless. Even if you can't go after him, let's get some information out there to the American people. YouTube took our video down. They hit us with a strike because we dared ask questions about childhood vaccines. And so can't get into it even more than that. Otherwise, they're going to take this video down too and go after us once again. But just a reminder, folks, big tech still hates you. Donald Trump is in the White House. Hopefully Donald Trump goes after the collusion between the deep state and these big tech companies that do not want you to have conversations even. I can't even opine on anything without getting a strike over on YouTube. You'll notice we're not streaming on Facebook today as well. I don't even know what's safe anymore. We're going to talk about that disastrous interview for Kristin Welker. Fantastic for Donald Trump. That was the viral stuff going on over the weekend. But before that, again, some housekeeping. If you're joining us today, thank you. Just wanted to get into some news too, because so much is happening this week and it's only Tuesday morning. The news cycle goes fast. But the big news, of course, yesterday, Daniel Penny found not guilty on the lesser of two charges, the negligent homicide. And just so everyone's aware to see how corrupt this prosecution of him has been from the beginning, yes, it shouldn't have been brought in the first case. No, it wouldn't have been brought if he hadn't been white and Jordan Neely hadn't been black. That is the end of the discussion right there. This was based on race, pure and simple. So they charged him with murder because he was a white man that saved people on a subway from a deranged lunatic saying he was going to kill people and had no problem going to prison. And then let's just flash forward to last Friday. The jury, you'll remember, was deliberating for 4 days. 4 days. This case, even though it shouldn't have been brought, should have been settled by the jury in 5 seconds. It goes on for 4 days. And mid-deliberation, they hadn't brought anything to the judge yet. They said, look, we can't come to an agreement on anything. The prosecution said, hey, judge, what if we just drop the other charge, the homicide charge, the manslaughter charge, and then they can just go back and deliberate this negligent homicide, the lesser of the two charges. This has never been done before. The judge, by his own admission, said, I'm going to try something new. And it was clear with his words. It was clear with his choice. This was an unprecedented move by the judge and the prosecution to drop the charge after the jury had already been sent away for deliberation. The judge was trying to tell them, fine, just come back with a verdict, a guilty verdict on this one. We just need to see Daniel Penny go to prison. The max sentence would have been 4 years. Absolutely corrupt. They rigged the system in the final moments once again to see if they could get anything to stick with Daniel Penny. The jury saw right through it. They came back Monday morning yesterday and said, we're not playing these games. Daniel Penny should be a free man. All of this is corrupt. You guys are only going after him because he's a white man, an alpha male in American society that they hate. The left wants to destroy all that. They don't want you to be safe. They want you to be terrorized. And so Daniel Penny is now a free man. And the irony, of course, is because they dismissed the first charge and a jury reached a verdict on the next charge, they can't retry him again. So this is fantastic. Had there been a hung jury, the judge declared a mistrial, they could have brought this back up, but they didn't. They rolled the dice on going after Penny on the lesser charge, negligent homicide. Jury said, nope, we're not doing it, judge. Case closed. Penny is a free man, and he will be a free man now in the state of New York. He better get out of there. Ron DeSantis offered to bring him down to Florida. He'll be safe in Florida. He'll be free in Florida. And Penny, if he's a smart man, should leave New York. And you know what? If you're a smart person in New York, you should get out of there too. So that was the big news from yesterday. And as we're scrolling through some of the trending news items on X, go get your news on X, folks. Don't turn on cable television. Cut the cord. Laura Trump is exiting the RNC. She had a huge role in getting Donald Trump to victory in November, getting out the vote, fundraising, speculation, of course, that she's going to take over Marco Rubio's Senate seat once he is confirmed, if his nomination goes through and he gets confirmed to be Secretary of State. Chances seem good right now that Laura Trump will be pegged by Governor Ron DeSantis down in Florida to fill that vacant Senate seat. That would be fantastic because Laura Trump would be a staunch proponent, staunch defender of Donald Trump's policies for his second administration. And then lastly, this is a ridiculous headline, and then we'll get into the clips. We're going to go through all of Donald Trump, all of Kristin Welker. It was a fantastic interview. I've got some thoughts on him doing the interview. But the news out of the Senate right now is that Joe Manchin is proposing term limits for the U.S. Supreme Court. Manchin, it's worth noting, announced he would not seek re-election, so he is done come January. Joe Manchin is out of the Senate. And isn't it interesting that right on the way out, he wants to go after the Supreme Court one more time to benefit Democrats. Conservatives have a majority on the court, so wouldn't you know that it benefits the left then to make sure that these justices all have to get out of there? And his proposal is 18 years. You might be asking yourself, of all the offices of all the institutions in Washington, D.C., are we worried about the Supreme Court as much as, say, I don't know, the House and the Senate? How about we propose term limits to the House and the Senate, and then once you guys pass that to make sure that you can't stay in Washington, D.C. forever, then let's talk about the Supreme Court. Until these idiots in Washington, D.C. propose term limits for themselves, I don't care. We could argue about numbers all day long. If it's 3 terms in the Senate, you get 18 years in the Senate. If you get 12 years in the House, 6 terms in the House, I will settle on almost anything at this point. But until these fools give themselves term limits, I don't have time to discuss the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, as it was written in the Constitution, you get a lifetime appointment. And if you don't like that, fine. But again, go after the House and the Senate first, and then you'll show me that you're serious. So I'm not buying it right now. That will certainly die. I don't see the Republican Senate giving the Supreme Court term limits. After all, it would hurt them politically right now. We want to keep the majority as long as possible. It is fascinating that a 6-3 conservative majority is really the only thing standing between us and tyranny. White House is important. GOP House, Senate, that's important. But man, the Supreme Court, if it went into control of the left, there goes the rest of the Constitution. And I lied. I do have one more news story to cover here. I'm not going to get into the CEO murder, the United Healthcare CEO's murder all that much. But this was an astounding takeaway. Just like with Donald Trump's assassination, we are watching people cheer his murder. People said, oh gosh, I wish the bullet would have hit him. Oh, it only missed by an inch. These same morons, these same demons were celebrating the fact that the CEO of United Healthcare got gunned down in the street because he represents big insurance, big medicine. Never mind the fact that, we just got to point this out. These lunatics cheer single payer. What do you think is going to happen, guys, when you get a single payer government-run insurance scam? Do you think it's going to get better? So they don't know what they want. These people are wrong about everything, but they're celebrating the fact that this man, a father, a husband, was murdered in the street because apparently it is his and his responsible alone, all these CEOs out there that make their money leading these companies, it's his fault that you can't get medical coverage. Now, far be it for me to say, but you know who's responsible for their health care first and foremost? It's you, the individual. Eat well, exercise, get some sleep. And yes, when you have a medical condition arise, do you know what doesn't happen? You don't get turned down. Now, I understand that people have medical bills that they can't afford to pay. I understand that insurance companies deny their claims. United Healthcare, guilty more than anyone. I think I saw a stat that 33% of the claims are denied by them. Obviously, it needs to be fixed. But again, is the solution more government? Absolutely not. And is the solution killing all of these people? Even if that made sense, do you think that United Healthcare is suddenly going to pay out all the rest of the claims? Do you think medical coverage is going to suddenly get better? No, you're going to get a new CEO and everything else stays the same. But this is the problem with the left. They want anarchy. They want mayhem. They will kill everybody to get what they want. And at the end of the day, their society is not going to be better off. But nobody is safe. And that's the point here. We can't be celebrating anyone's murder like this. You're a demon for doing that. Again, husband, father, not the biggest problem. We're not going to get into the conspiracies of, Pelosi, insider trading, the hack. Just looking at this from the straightforward lens of the left cheerleading his death. And so the perfect clip to play for that, we got Taylor Lorenz, who made an appearance on Piers Morgan. And just listen to her words. Listen to the joy that she has with the news that this man was murdered. Absolutely astounding.
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because
I value the sanctity of life. And then I was thrilled that he got murdered. And now she's going to try to contextualize this, qualify this. But here's Piers' response. This should be all of our responses. You were happy when you read that he was killed?
Joy?
Feels like,
Seriously?
I mean,
Joy
I
at a
guess I would
man's
say
execution?
maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
We're
this is a
watching
man
the footage.
responsible for
How can
death.
this make you joyful? This guy's a
So,
husband,
Piers,
he's a
like
father,
billions,
and he's being
and
gunned
so
down in the middle of Manhattan.
so
Why
are the
does that
tens
make
of
you
thousands
joyful?
of Americans that he murdered. So are the tens.
We're going to play another clip where she has that replayed back to her and she's asked to comment on it. But she's defending it. She was trying to contextualize it and it only sounds worse. Yes, I'm happy he died because you know who else is dying? Americans that get denied health coverage. And again, no one gets denied coverage. It might be expensive after the fact. And let me know in the comments. I have never met someone that showed up to the hospital in dire need of attention and got simply turned away. Maybe you get sent to another hospital, but you never get denied coverage. And so I don't understand her point there at all.
Of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And
denying coverage and denying care are also two very different things. Worth pointing out, Taylor Lorenz is either stupid or dishonest or both. I'm going to get in trouble on YouTube for mentioning this, so I'm going to use my words carefully. Where was Taylor Lorenz when the government colluded with hospital systems, insurance companies, let's just say to propose certain treatments during a nasty virus? It denied you alternative treatments if you wanted it. Lots of people got killed in the process. Was she worried about that? Was she worried about big medicine, big insurance, big hospital, big government getting in the way of your healthcare decisions just a couple of years ago? I don't think so. In fact, she was proposing covering your face for the rest of your life, disinviting people that didn't take certain therapeutics. They're always disingenuous. They don't believe in anything. She's just revealing herself. This is how they think. This is how they feel. I'm glad he got murdered because this nebulous idea of big insurance and big medicine, which, you know, if she cared about that, she would want government to get out of the way, the private market to entirely take over, but she won't even say that. So again, it's all insane. It's just cluelessness. But again, the fact that she is celebrating his murder, what an awful human being. If you're happy that this happened, you're an awful human being.
the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die.
Also worth pointing out, Taylor Lorenz grew up fabulously wealthy, went to the best schools, super elitist. She gets paid way too much money to write. It was for the Times and the Washington Post and do these appearances. Do you think Taylor Lorenz cares about you? Does any Democrat care about you? Joe Biden doesn't care about this country. People were just like, I think we have a clip of that today where Joe Biden calls out, or Donald Trump calls out Joe Biden for being the divider in chief. So people are like, you know who hates half the country? Joe Biden. He called us all domestic terrorists if we were in the MAGA movement. And then my rebuttal to that is like, have his policies helped any American? I think it's clear that their open borders, endless wars, taxation, crime going free in every major city. Criminals never get punished. Do their policies seem to help anybody? So when they say that Joe Biden hates half the country, I always fact check and say, I'm pretty sure he hates all this country. Same nonsense here with Lorenz.
Because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
Great question. Great question. I promise I will get to the Trump Welker clips in a second, but it's so revealing to play this segment right here. And Piers asked the best question possible. If you are happy, if you're joyful, if you're thrilled that this CEO got gunned down, why wouldn't you be thrilled with all the CEOs getting gunned down? It's a great question. It is an absolutely fair question. Let's defend your principles. Let's defend your logic, Lorenz. And here's what she has to say.
Why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the
You seem
system.
to find the whole thing hilarious.
Yeah, I'm also glad he called this out. I was going to comment on the end of the video, but he's pointing out right here. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the clip. You can just watch her face. She's smiling as she talks. Now, you don't want to be a curmudgeon on TV. I get it. But she is smiling. She's like, I'm so happy that he got gunned down in the street. Like, it is psychopathic. It is levels of sociopathy. She is off the rails, deluded. I can't stress this enough. But let's finish out this clip and we'll go back to him replaying it for her.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving.
All right, well, we're going to stop right there. I can't anymore, but she's defending it. She had a chance to walk it back, clarify, and she is only doubling down and defending. I'm joyful, Piers. What can I say? I'm not glad he's murdered, but also lots of other people die. So can you really be that upset about it? She said she's not empathetic. Just insane. Here's later in the same show where they take that clip and they say, all right, Lorenz, I still got you here. Here's what you said. Would you like to comment? It doesn't get better. I will spoil it right now. It doesn't get better.
Happy with my mischaracterization of what you said and inferring that you were feeling joyful about what had happened to this guy. So we've got the clip and we'll just play it back just to remind you.
Mm-hmm. I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not... No, what I said, certainly not empathy. This is literally...
So you felt joy? You felt joy.
I'm so glad that you played that clip, because you'll see that I didn't say that I felt joy. And then she said she misspoke and clarified.
I gotta clear my throat here. Microcosm of leftism. They will say something to you. We can all hear it. And then they'll just deny that they said it. They think you're stupid. She said, I felt joy. And now she's telling us, I didn't say I felt joy. We all heard the clip, Taylor.
Oh.
And I didn't say that I felt joy.
You don't think, Mark, it was more that she wished she hadn't said she felt joy? Because she suddenly realized how bad it sounded.
Why don't you listen to that clip again? Because I don't say that I feel joy in the man's death. I said, I feel joy because, and that's exactly when you cut me off. And if you let me finish, I would say, I feel joy.
Bullshit.
Oh, bullshit, Piers. You don't know what was in my head.
That's not. She's right. She's right, Piers.
Bullshit.
She actually said, I feel joy, and then you interrupted her there.
Yeah, so then this guy jumps in. He's a leftist, and so this is what they have to do. Just the Borg have been programmed. I have to defend her. What she said is right. Doesn't make any sense. It was evil what she said. Pure demonic stuff right there, but he's just like, nope, that's my team, so I'm going to go to bat for them. This is what they're all doing now. We all heard her say it. We know she's not alone in feeling it. This is what it has come to in society. This is who wants to run the country. This is the other side right here. And again, what else can you say? This is just pure evil, folks. But I don't want to spend any more time on this. We've all seen the story. They have allegedly got the guy that pulled the trigger. I have questions about that. He was obviously very meticulous in planning this, followed him. People were speculating like trained assassin, connection to Pelosi, not getting into conspiracy stuff. But man, when you see how they caught the supposed killer, he took his mask down to flirt, essentially. And he checks all the boxes of I'm a climate activist. I don't like big healthcare. I follow certain accounts that say things. And there was a weird thing where Taylor Lorenz followed his ex account. And then he just gets pulled over in Pennsylvania randomly. And he has the weapon still. And he has cash, and he's got these fake IDs. Like, he made it really easy to get caught, and then he's got all this stuff on him. Like, I am not trying to educate anyone on how to do this. I am not proposing anybody do this, but wouldn't it make sense if you had the weapon in the crime, the first thing you do is you dispose of the weapon? So I have a lot of questions about the dude that they caught. Was it really him? I know people pulled up like the security footage camera from, I think it was a Starbucks. So again, when he pulled down his face mask just to smile at a cute girl across the counter, like, you went through all this and there's a camera and you're going to flirt, and but then the nose doesn't look the same. The eyebrows don't look the same. This is just me. This is just my opinion, YouTube. Don't take this video down. I have a lot of questions. It kind of seems too easy. And then you've got people also pointing out, like, we knew him in a day. Like, we caught him. Now we figured it out. We solved the crime. He had a manifesto, because they always have a manifesto for some reason. And we still don't know about July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. So you're telling us, major murder case, couldn't find him for a while, and then suddenly, boom, now we know everything about him. But we still don't know anything about Thomas Crooks, who apparently, well, and then we can get into the other attempted Trump assassination with Ryan Ruth, who had like 18 cell phones and 5 laptops and 4 terabytes of data. We know all this about all these guys, but simply incredible stuff. So I'm not convinced. I'm going to keep watching the story. I think more is going to come out, or not. Maybe more doesn't come out because they don't want us to get to the bottom of this after all. All right, but as promised, Trump destroys fake news media with epic interview. It's time to dive into the meat of the show today. It's time to get into we have clips. Folks, if you didn't see the full interview, I watched it all over the weekend. It's an hour and a half. Yeah, it's a lot to sit through. And if there's football on Sunday, if there's kids events over the weekend, you're like, the last thing I want to do is listen to an hour and a half of fake news media getting trounced by Trump. The clips are glorious, but I don't blame you if you don't want to watch the whole thing. But I'm going to say this before I play the videos. I don't like that Donald Trump is going on corporate media outlets. He doesn't need to do it. And I've made this comment before in some other videos on our other American Tribune channel on Rumble. I'll say it again for the podcast show. I don't like that he is giving any legitimacy to fake news. Donald Trump won the election by bypassing all of these corporate media gatekeepers. He didn't need them. Yeah, J.D. Vance was fantastic on CNN. He'd always go on the show and just be like, you guys are idiots, you're lying, here's the truth. That's fine. You can send out other people, I suppose. But again, I would prefer the Trump admin has nothing to do with corporate media. They don't need them. Their viewership is dwindling. People are getting real news on X and independent journalists and podcasts. That's where Trump can just spend all of his time and give them legitimacy. Donald Trump doesn't need to sit down with NBC. Donald Trump can post on Truth Social. He can post on X. He can do podcast appearances with folks. He can get his message out because once he posts something on Truth Social, if you're over on X, you see someone takes a screenshot, they comment on it, and that's how we get our news. The younger generations are simply not tuning in to corporate media. Heck, they don't even have corporate media available because they're not paying for cable. Who wants to pay $200 a month for all these channels you don't need? And why would you watch corporate media if you just know they have an agenda and they're biased and they lie to you? And so I don't like this. I just had to say it. I don't like that Trump sat down with Kristin Welker. Why? Yes, he can smash her. He can demolish her. He can push back and get his answers out there and, disrupt the corporate media agenda and the narrative. I get all of the reasoning. I just don't want him to legitimize corporate media anymore now that he won the election and people saw through corporate media. Again, go on social media, go on podcasts, go to independent journalists. He could sit down with anybody. He could sit down with Tucker Carlson. He could sit down with any number of people, and we would still watch him. Are we doing this just for entertainment value where it's like, oh, look at this, Trump destroys Kristin Welker, fake news host? Yeah, it plays well in headlines. And yeah, people are going to watch clips because they want to see this gal get dunked on. But in terms of advancing truth, advancing new media outlets, this doesn't help. This kind of just sets us back. So again, I don't want legitimacy for corporate media. I don't want him to do this. Something tells me this is not going to be his only interview with, let's say, NBC. J.D. Vance will certainly make more appearances on CNN. I understand why all these rhino senators and House members want to go on TV. They like to be in front of the camera. They want to get some notoriety and attention and fame and make their appearances and get their name out there. Donald Trump doesn't need to do that. So again, Trump admin, if you're listening at the 23-minute mark of this podcast, the American Tribune Live, stop giving legitimacy to corporate media. Let corporate media die. All right, so that's my little rant there about Trump's appearance. But otherwise, fantastic. Like I said, plays well. These clips are hilarious because Donald Trump is just so good at what he does. Like, he came prepared today. I know I just said he should do like Joe Rogan's podcast, and he did Rogan's podcast, and I had my gripes about that. I think it took like half an hour for him to like actually get into stuff. So Trump just showed up from the get-go and is like ready to go. And so maybe Trump needs that antagonism. Maybe he needs to know the person on the other side doesn't like him and is lying to him and the American people, and that kind of fires him up a little bit more than kind of a friendlier format with Joe Rogan. It's like, hey, Trump, tell us about yourself. So maybe he needs to get a little fire in his belly to be more focused in his responses. But man, he did a number on Welker. We have so many clips to get through. I'm going to play them in no particular order. Not going to really contextualize it. We'll play the clip. We'll comment on the clip. We'll go to the next clip here. So that's how we're going to run through the program. So we're going to start at the top of my list. Let's take a listen.
Remember, unselect committee, a year and a half of sworn testimony. And after getting all of the testimony, they deleted it, and they destroyed almost everything. There's nothing left. It's unprecedented.
And they deny doing that.
If you do that in a civil case, you go to jail.
You know they deny doing that. And officials say that the order never came in for the National Guard.
They put out a statement.
On January 6th, let me ask you this about January.
All right, so here's my comment on this clip right here. Notice that she is trying to fact check, and this is what they did in the presidential debates, vice presidential debates. This is how you know they are frauds. They're not there to learn. They're not there to hear what Trump has to say. They're going to give him time to talk, and then they're just going to jump in and fact check. This is not journalism. This is propaganda. Whatever Trump says, I'm prepared to offer this. We're not trying to find middle ground. We're not trying to seek out the truth. Whatever you say, Trump, I'm going to come in. This is what I have to say. And you know what? It's pretty simple to figure out, did they delete evidence or not on the J6 committee? Seems like they did. I'm pretty sure they admitted they did, so I don't know what Welker is talking about here. But again, this is what the interview is like. This is why he doesn't need to spend time on that, because he can go to her and say, like, they deleted evidence. There was really no defense in the J6 hearing. It was all one-sided. It was produced by your folks in corporate media to be more of a dramatized documentary television production than an actual court hearing. But there she is, like, nope, we asked them, they said they didn't do it, so you're lying. Like, that is Welker's premise here. This is just awful journalism, and we're going to get to a point later where Trump calls her out for it.
Benny Thompson wrote in a statement that he has destroyed all evidence.
Let me ask you this about.
So there you go. Benny Thompson said, yep, I destroyed some of the evidence. He should go to jail for that. And Welker, right after she had said, like, well, they told me they didn't, and he makes that claim, she's like, let's just move on. Complete sham of an interview. This is why I don't want him to do that.
January 6th.
I wish you could be if you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly. I'm telling you, they deleted and destroyed all the evidence. Everyone knows it. And you slough it off like it doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm just saying they deny it. That's all I'm saying.
Kristin, if I did it.
What a fantastic spot right there. Welker, she actually got praised. She, if you recall, back in 2020, a lifetime ago in politics, Welker was one of the moderators for the presidential debates between Trump and Biden. Obviously harder on Trump than Joe. Obviously fact-checked him in the debates. Let Joe Biden say whatever he wanted as best he could. It was Biden speaking after all. But Trump actually complimented her in the debates. He's not an unfair person, but he's absolutely spot on here. Like, Welker, you're only discrediting yourself. And you know what? Welker has to play this game because she wants to be in the chair there. She wants to be on television nightly news. She wants to keep her job. So she has to play the part that this propaganda media demands of her. But Trump's absolutely right. Like, Kristin, you could be such a better journalist if you sought out the truth instead of pushing falsehoods and propaganda. So absolutely fantastic. And then there she is. She's just like, no.
You would be standing up in that chair shouting at me. And you know what I'd do? I'd say, you got me. They have done something so illegal. They have a committee sworn to, and because it was so bad, the only reason they did it is because the testimony turned out to be in favor of me. Like Secret Service testified and disputed everything. It made them into a bunch of liars. Not Secret Service, it made the people.
Remember when Cassidy Hutchinson was talking to Liz Cheney on the side without her lawyer knowing, getting coached on what to say? Remember when Cassidy Hutchinson, I'm just pointing out one specific instance of the entire sham trials, but remember when she said Donald Trump tried to commandeer the Beast, the vehicle he was riding in, to take it to the Capitol building, and it turns out none of that happened? That is just one example of what Trump is talking about here. It's like, you don't care about the truth, Welker. And he's absolutely right again. Like, he got called out for, they always say Donald Trump's a liar. And so he makes the point, like, if I lied the way you're lying, you and all your cronies in corporate media would be jumping down my throat. You'd be like, Trump is lying. So he flips it and he says, how come it's okay for you to lie all the time then? And she's got nothing. She's got absolutely nothing.
They got rid of it because it made Nancy Pelosi, the mayor of D.C., so many people look like criminals. And I will tell you, it's illegal for them to delete and to destroy that evidence.
Let me ask.
The press was obviously unfair to me. The press, no president has ever gotten treated by the press like I was.
Fact check, true.
And yet I got more votes than any Republican candidate in history. By far. It's not even close. So you say, what's that all about? The press has to straighten itself out because, honestly, it's lost all credibility. When that can happen, based on the press, I should have gotten no votes. None. And yet I got the highest number ever. And the reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
It's fair only in that you allowed me to say what I say. But, the answers, the questions are, pretty nasty. But look, because I've seen you interview other people like Biden. And
I've never interviewed President Biden. Actually.
When I say you, I'm talking metaphorically. I've seen George Stephanopoulos interview Biden, and he's a tough interviewer. it's the softest interview. I've seen CNN interview him. They give these soft, what's your favorite ice cream? It's a whole different deal. I don't understand why.
He uses that phrase like I use that phrase often. I don't understand why. Like, we all know why, because they have an agenda. They work for the same team. Their job is not to report, but to discredit and propagandize. But he is so right on all of this, folks. Like, this is the last part of the interview. We led with the end first. This is how he is summarizing experience. Like, every time he spoke, and there were examples in the short clip when we first played it, no matter what Trump said, Welker was going to push back. She had her talking points ready to go. She wasn't interested in learning about Donald Trump. She wanted to give him a platform because it made her career, at least she thought it would help her career. Look at me, I sat down with the president, and what journalist wouldn't aspire to do that? But again, a real journalist would seek the truth. Donald Trump, I hadn't heard that before. Tell me more about that. You mean Benny Thompson deleted all this evidence? You mean Democrats and Republicans, Republicans, Cheney and Kinzinger on the committee, coached witnesses? You mean it was produced by a television exec to influence the way the American people thought about January 6th? But Welker doesn't admit any of that. Just fact check, just moving on when things are said that she doesn't want to hear. So great conclusion by Donald Trump. And again, you don't get this from like a Joe Rogan podcast. You only get it when he's antagonized by the media. I think Trump likes these kind of environments, and he's armed with the truth. He is armed with facts. So he knows he's on the right side of everything. So I think he kind of likes it. That's probably why he keeps doing it. But that's why I say don't give them legitimacy. He's out there saying you guys are all hacks, you're all fake news, and then he still sits down with them. But let's go to the next clip here. We've got him. This is the headline of the clip: the boss breaking Welker down.
Let me ask you about some of this new reporting. NBC News is reporting that President Biden is considering giving preemptive pardons to the likes of Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and Anthony Fauci. If President Biden doesn't issue those pardons, do you think they are going to wish that he had? Are they going to be pursued?
I can tell you this about Cheney, and she's a so-called Republican. I think she hurt the Democrats terribly. When I saw that Kamala put Cheney out on the campaign trail, I said, that's the end of Kamala. I really did. I thought it was a terrible move, especially if you're a Democrat. But Cheney...
Yeah. Remember when we called her dad Darth Vader, and he was the one that was connected to Halliburton and oil companies? He was sending your young men and women to die over in an oil field. The Bush administration was Hitler before Trump was Hitler. They hated Cheney, and then suddenly they're celebrating Liz Cheney's endorsement of Kamala Harris. Like, make that make sense. If you want proof we live in a simulation, it's the fact that they got people who hated Cheney more than anyone to then applaud and celebrate Liz Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris. But Trump is right, too, politically speaking. Once she needed the help of Liz Cheney, you could see how bad her campaign was doing. She wasn't getting her own base excited, so they thought they would siphon off the Never Trump Republicans. And as far as I'm concerned, a Never Trump Republican is really just a Democrat. How can you not support the America First movement if you are an alleged, supposed conservative? So it's all fake there, too. But Liz Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris, that's not a good thing. That shows how desperate they were. So great for Trump for calling it out again. This is why we like Donald Trump, because he sees things for what they are, and he'll say it.
Is something that's inexcusable, along with Thompson and the people on the Unselect Committee of political thugs and, creeps. So the Unselect Committee went through a year and a half of testimony. Wait. They deleted and destroyed all evidence of that they found.
All right, so then that's going to kind of segue into the other clip that we had there. But again, they deleted evidence. I don't think we're disputing that. I don't even think YouTube's going to fact check me for saying that. But then somehow Welker's over there like, they didn't delete it. Yeah, they did. So yes, good job seeking the truth, journalist Welker. Here we go. This one is, I think we played that clip. I'm going to skip it. Let's go to this next one.
About another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are...
You're talking about separation?
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your borders are, Tom Homan said, they can be deported together. Correct. Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
What a fantastic response. So then asked about illegal immigration, asked about his deportation plans, asked about Tom Homan, who is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best appointees by Trump for his second administration. yeah, all these people are crying like, oh no, what are you going to do with families? Well, if you don't want families separated, then send them all back. And then the families can decide for themselves. Well, I'm a citizen. Should I stay? You're not a citizen. I guess you're going. If you want to keep your family intact, then you can leave with your family. And folks, it sounds harsh, but we are at the point where we need harsh. All of the empathy, all of the money, all of the tolerance, what has it gotten us? And what will it continue to get us? This immigration situation is untenable. We cannot sustain what we are doing if we want to keep our country. And there's arguments to be made, certainly about the financial considerations. You have to consider demographics and values too. Like, what is America when you stop and think about it? It's not a country of people living here that don't hold our values, that don't share our values, that don't value freedom and independence the same way that regular Americans have been raised on that idea. But other people around the world, they're not coming here to spread those ideals or share those ideals. They have different values. You think about eating cats and dogs. Like, yeah, we made it a meme, but yeah, it's also true that you're importing people here that just don't share our customs. And that's fine if they're going to go do it in their home country. Let's say Haiti, for example. But that's not what we do here. So why are we bringing people in here that don't share the same things? But Donald Trump is right. Something has to be done. We've got to send the illegals home. We can't afford them. We shouldn't have to be able to afford them. We have enough things to figure out and solve for American citizens first. Why are we going to rebuild Syria now? Why are we rebuilding other countries around the world when Western North Carolina has people living in tents still? Who do you value? You got the Denver mayor over there still. I think Boston mayor's in the same camp saying, we're not going to comply with the federal government. We're going to prioritize illegals over citizens first. How do you defend that? I understand that these politicians are doing all their virtue signaling. Of course, they're never going to invite an illegal family into their own home. But why are they demanding that their citizens put up with it then? It's completely backwards. And as a voter, how do you defend that as well? Like, yeah, I'll vote for a guy because he sees the value in all humans. And again, we're not talking about the value of all humans in the eyes of God. Let God value them all the same. Let them all be equal under the eyes of God. But as an American, you're under no obligation to do so. You are from this country. Go live in that country. You are an American. Let's put you first in the front of the line. Like, this is not a hard concept. All right, moving on here. So I think this is a new one. Let's play it.
Are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it.
Talk about an understatement. Gosh, this is why Trump is so good. Can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home with armed agents and they said it was boilerplate. Yep, you need to carry a firearm. You need to be prepared to shoot if there's an engagement. Like at Mar-a-Lago, were they prepared to have a shootout at Mar-a-Lago? But they raided his home. And notice that Donald Trump won the election and Jack Smith dropped the case. This is all related to the classified documents that Trump stole. I played a clip of last week's episode about Scott Adams breaking it down. It's like, well, they didn't accuse him of being a thief. So why are we using the word stole to begin with? But that case got dropped. There was nothing there. But they sent in FBI agents, armed FBI agents to Mar-a-Lago. You had the stories about going through people's drawers, pulling out goodness knows what, tearing the house apart. So yeah, Christopher Wray, gotta go. All right, we are moving on again. Let's try this one.
The press, I can't say treated her unfairly. You know why? Because she's very popular. You would think if the press was unfair, like to me, the press was obviously unfair to me. The press, no president has ever gotten treated by the press like I was. And yet I got more votes than any Republican.
All right, so we did play that clip. Yeah, I got a bunch in here. Some of them are cut at different places. Let's go to this one here.
Turned it down flat. And the police commissioner was very nasty about it to her. And he testified. And here's what happened. The January 6th unselect committee of thugs and horrible people, the unselect committee destroyed all the evidence.
They say they didn't do that. We did ask them. We did ask the January 6th committee.
Well, they announced it.
So we heard that before. I think we had a different camera angle there. We asked them. They said they didn't do it, so it must be okay. Yeah, they're not going to admit to you when you're sitting down with Donald Trump. Yeah, we asked them, so it's okay. Who did you ask specifically? And how are we not all able to say that, yes, they deleted evidence? I covered that part already. But again, this isn't journalism. This is propaganda. Okay, Trump, you're going to say your thing, and then I'm going to defend the other narrative, and that's it, apparently. No, Trump, whatever you're saying, I'm fact-checking you. Your word against my word. Like, this is not how it is supposed to function. Again, why is he giving legitimacy to these people? He knows he's going to get pushback. He knows they're not going to agree with him.
Let me ask you about RFK Jr. He has obviously talked about his skepticism of vaccines. He's expressed opposition to childhood vaccines. Do you want to see childhood vaccines eliminated?
Such a disingenuous question. Again, how many times do we have to say it? No one is talking about eliminating them completely. YouTube, I am telling you as well, no one's advocating for them to be eliminated completely. Now, Donald Trump does have a good caveat in there. So I'll let Trump respond, because he does say, well, if in such a circumstance, maybe. But that's not the debate. The debate from RFK right now is like, we need to do safety studies. That's it. We just want to have safety studies conducted. That's it.
If they're dangerous for the children. Look.
So possibly?
When you look at some of the problems, when you look at what's going on with disease and sickness in our country, something's.
All right. I'm going to stop it right there, because this is the kind of conversation that got us struck down last time over on YouTube. Again, crazy that we have to censor ourselves like this. The debate is around just making sure that these things are safe for kids. People have questions. You're allowed to have questions. But again, I'm not going to say much more on that here. We want to keep our YouTube channel active. But again, just point out the fact that we have to censor ourselves. This is what YouTube, this is what Facebook is all about. That's why, again, I'm not even streaming on Facebook today, because as we rebut Kristin Welker, and we especially rebut this question, they don't take too kindly to that. Okay, I think we have this one too.
20 states that still have the federal minimum wage at $7.25. And I actually have a map. 19 of these states actually voted for you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it
Yeah.
right here. I don't know if you remember this, but during the debate in 2020, I asked you if you would raise the minimum wage. You said you would consider it. And so my question for you is, now that you are going back to the White House, for these 19 states that voted for you, are you going to raise the federal
It's a very low
minimum wage?
number. I will agree. It's a very low number. Let me give you the downside, though.
Yeah.
In California, they raised it up to a very high number. And your restaurants are going out of business all over the place. The population is shrinking. It's had a very negative impact. But there is a level at which you could do it, absolutely. Yeah.
What is that level, do you
I don't
think?
know. I mean, I really don't know.
Basic Econ 101, folks. You know what the minimum wage should be? $0. The federal government should have no hand in the economic cookie jar. It has no business operating in the marketplace in that way. The government's role when it comes to the economy is making sure that it is fair for people. It is not its job to dictate what wages will be. And as Donald Trump makes the counterexample, okay, you want to raise the minimum wage to a fair living standard, which they'll never tell you a number. It used to be 15, now it's 20. They did that. We have done experiments. Like, we didn't need experiments to tell us that, like, no, you can't arbitrarily just make up a number and force small businesses to pay it. I didn't need that example, but now we have an example. Seattle had to backtrack their minimum wage law. I think Oregon might have. California certainly did. And what you see happen when the wage goes up too much, restaurants especially, but any small business operates on the slimmest of margins. They take into account the salaries to employees that they can offer. They have to buy their products. They have to operate the whole store. They have to sell at a profit to cover all those other expenses we talked about. If you make it that your expenses go up so much to cover employee salaries, you either go out of business, you raise your own prices to offset the mandate from the government that said you had to pay your employees more, or you automate. In the long run, employees never win when the government says you're going to get paid more. Maybe tomorrow you're like, hey, this is great. I got $20 an hour in my paycheck. And then a year later, you realize if you're at a fast food place, they can just automate your position because it's cheaper to buy a machine one time than to pay your salary over time. They close because, you know what? It doesn't make sense for me to run at a loss. I can't afford these hourly wages anymore that the state has mandated. So I'm just going to close instead of run at a loss. And now instead of $7.25 an hour, you make $0 and have no job. Again, I don't know what it feels great to say everyone deserves a living wage. Do you know how you can get a better living wage? It's developing a skill set and then seeking those other jobs out in the marketplace. McDonald's, server, maybe that's fine for you. Maybe that's what you want to do. But McDonald's was never meant to be a career. It was meant to be an opening into the working world. You would have kids work there to get some job experience. Maybe you're retired and just want to supplement your income. It's not supposed to be, I work the register at McDonald's and I support a family of 4. In a perfect world, fine, maybe you can do that, but we're not in a perfect world. And again, that's not how it was designed to be. The correct answer, one more time, for the federal minimum wage is $0, and let the marketplace dictate what you get paid. We are all different. That means we are not all the same. That means we will have different abilities. We will have different interests. I will go seek out a job that aligns with my interests, abilities, skill sets, etc. I was an assistant principal. I worked with a lot of teachers. Before that, I was a teacher. Not every teacher aspired to be a principal. Not every teacher had the skill set or the mindset to be an administrator, and that's okay. They were great teachers. That applies to everywhere in the marketplace. You seek out something that you like to do, that you're able to do. You get compensated for that work. And at the end of the day, that is how it is supposed to work. But these mandates for raising the minimum wage, it sounds good. You can buy votes. So I'm going to go vote for the politician that's going to give me $20 an hour. And then they never tell you the detriments of that. They don't tell you that your job will now get outsourced overseas, automated, shut down entirely. But let's just feel good about $20 an hour. Great economic lesson from Donald Trump. And then we added to that. I hope you appreciate that.
I can say this. You have a lot of businesses that are open and thriving because of the lower minimum wage.
Correct.
If you raise it too much, and you understand this, if California went crazy, they went crazy. And people, the restaurants are closing all over. Many more people are hurt.
So I hear you saying, similarly to sort of what you said in 2020, will you consider it? Is this something you're going to look at?
I'd want to speak to the governors. And the other thing that's very complicated about minimum wage.
I don't know what Trump's going to say yet. I don't remember this exact clip, but when he said I need to speak to the governors, here's something else people don't consider. When you're the federal government dictating at large for the rest of the country, not all minimum wages land the same. If I make $7.25 an hour in, let's say, I don't know, Arkansas, I'm not trying to pick on Arkansas, and then $7.25 in California, if all these states had the exact same minimum wage handed down to them from some tyrannical, overreaching federal government, that affects people differently. $7.25 an hour in California barely gets you a gallon of gas. $7.25 in Arkansas gets you a couple gallons of gas. And I'm just making up some silly economic examples, but cost of living varies in state to state. Therefore, your salary might look different depending on the state you live in. But for them just to blanket say $7.25 an hour, and then Welker's like, well, these states voted for you. Yeah, maybe the cost of living is lower. Maybe that number makes sense for them. And I know we're always looking out for the plight of the worker. How about the business owners? We're always told small business is the backbone of America. Small businesses make America hum. But then when it comes to these discussions on minimum wage, you know who we're not considering? These small businesses. We're just like, oh, the poor worker. Guess what, poor worker? If you want to make more money, I have already said it, develop a skill set, seek something else out, maybe start your own business, and that takes risk. I started my own business at the American Tribune. I took a big risk. Hopefully it pans out. Not everyone can start their own business. Their circumstances might be different. There are options, though. But again, in the context of speaking to governors, cost of living is different. And so the federal wage shouldn't exist, but then the minimum wage in every state is going to look different as well. But $20 an hour everywhere, sure, let's see how that works out.
Places are so different. Mississippi and Alabama and great places are very different than New York or California.
Oh, so that is the exact point I made. How about that? Donald Trump's going to say it too here.
California, I mean, in terms of the cost of living and other things. So it would be nice to have just a minimum wage for the whole country, but it wouldn't work.
Correct. It doesn't work because it doesn't make sense. And again, the minimum wage should be $0, and businesses will pay what they are able to attract the best employees. But that's too much to ask for some folks. All right, I got to clear out our studio. They only give us 10 video slots here. And then let's pick up on this conversation.
When John McCain let us down by voting, and Murkowski and Collins and whoever it was that voted against, but they really let us down. They did us a great disservice because we would have had great health. Obama.
Yes. Remember, John McCain gave a middle finger to Donald Trump and the entire American people by voting against Trump's plan to abolish the ACA, Obama's American Health Care Act, Obamacare. McCain did that out of spite, not out of principle, not out of beliefs, not out of trying to make healthcare better. He voted no to keep it in place just to stab Trump in the back.
Obamacare is lousy health care. It's very expensive health.
You can keep your doctor if you like it. It'll keep costs down. How many people pay more for healthcare than ever before, even though Obamacare was passed? All of you. You all pay more for healthcare. The government doesn't belong in the insurance business. You know what else would be great is if we allowed insurance companies to compete across state lines, rather. Where I live in Minnesota, I have to negotiate with all these insurance companies, and they are the only ones that operate in Minnesota. If I had a South Dakota insurance company come across state lines and say, I will compete with that Blue Cross plan, I'll compete with that United Healthcare plan, I will give you, the consumer, more options. And if I want your business, I might have to offer more competitive prices. That would also drop prices. But these people aren't interested in the consumer. That Taylor Lorenz, we just played a clip here, bemoaning the fact that insurance costs too much. Has she ever proposed getting government out of the insurance company? When has government ever made anything more efficient and cheaper? When has having your mandate within the state, so only insurance companies can operate in that state, how has that made it cheaper? Where's Lorenz with these solutions? Instead, she's joyful that these CEOs get killed and the system doesn't change.
Care for the people. It's also expensive for the country, but for the people. It's lousy health care. When John McCain gave his thumbs down after saying for 10 years that he wants to repeal and replace, okay? And then he came out, put his now famous thumbs down, and he became a hero to the left. Let me tell you, if we find something better, I would love to do it. But one thing I have to say, I inherited Obamacare, or anything else you want to go. It's got about 20 names, but I inherited it. And I had a decision to make with Health and Human Services. I had a big decision to make. Do I make it as good as we can make it, or do I let it rot? And a lot of political people said, let it rot and let it be a failure.
I didn't fact check this claim myself. I believe it because why wouldn't it be? Anything that helps Americans is not going to be passed in Congress. There was some little component within the legislation, and that was the one that's so big, we just got to pass it to find out what's in it. I think they made a law. So I'm going to couch this comment in. I'm not sure. Fact check me, commenters there. Don't fact check me, YouTube, because I don't know for sure. Doctors aren't allowed to own their own practices. Now, when I say doctors, I'm talking about like general practitioners, or there are a lot of different doctors. Dentists are doctors, optometrists are doctors, ophthalmologists. I get that. They own their own clinics, but doctors themselves. So like when you're sick and that's the kind of doctor you need to see, they can't own their own clinic. That's what I was led to believe on X. Supposedly that is some piece of the legislation, the ACA. They took away doctors' abilities to run their own clinics as they saw fit. And so the only people that could operate hospitals were, well, the hospital systems, insurance companies in effect, the government in effect, because as the government gets more involved in the insurance game, guess who's writing the checks? But you talk about getting rid of choice and free market competition and driving costs up. How about doctors are allowed to own their own practices? And if I am sick, I'm going to go to practice A that takes whatever form of insurance or takes cash. Imagine the price of healthcare if you could go to your general practitioner for a sore throat and just pay cash instead of having insurance companies say, you know what, this costs $500. We'll bill the doctor $100, pocket the rest. Maybe we get rid of that part too.
That's not the right thing to do. And I had very good people in the medical area that handled that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, we really have an obligation to make it as good as we can. And we did. We made it as good as we can make it. Instead of making it bad where everybody would be calling for its repeal, I made it so that it works now.
And obviously the correct answer, the best answer is to repeal it. We will see if Trump touches it. As you look at Doge, as Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy come in and they're like, where can we cut spending? How about cutting spending where the government uses your tax dollars to redistribute it for healthcare? And the argument like, yeah, we're the richest country in the world. We should be able to afford everyone's bills. Not true. Simply not true. We are wealthy on paper, GDP, but to pay for this, you have to take tax dollars from American citizens. And maybe we don't punish people for not signing up for healthcare. If they're young and single and they're like, I'm going to roll the dice, that is on them. Why don't they seek out what they want to do instead of having these mandates to cover it? I don't need to pay more in my premiums that maybe I don't feel like I need just to offset the cost for somebody else to get that. That is socialism. Single payer healthcare would absolutely decimate healthcare in this country, but these people won't admit it. All right, I am moving on here. We're going to get off the healthcare rant for a second. I don't know if we played this. This might be the same one.
20 states.
Okay, we did that. That was the minimum wage one. Bear with me for a second. Here we go.
Let's talk about Project 2025.
Let's talk about Project 2025. They refuse to let this go. For the record, some of the stuff in Project 2025, not feasible, not a fan of it. A lot of it, though, is just like basic conservative thoughts as well. But these guys wanted to make it the boogeyman for Trump's campaign. They ran out of things to say about Russia. So then they started to say, well, this really conservative think tank released Project 2025. And she'll even say this. She's like, I know you disavowed it. I know you distanced yourself from it. But I'm still going to ask you about it because I just have to make sure that that word is fresh in the American people's mind because we have to have something to go after you on. Oh, you disavowed it? I'm going to ask about you anyways. I'm going to ask you about it anyways. Let's take a listen.
This is the conservative policy blueprint. You disavowed it during the campaign. You called it a product of the radical right. You've said some of their ideas were abysmal.
I said some of it is. Some of it is very good. Some of it's very mainstream, actually. Frankly, the Democrats should have used some of it because they went, with all the transgender.
It is so subtle, folks. But this is where Donald Trump is so good. Now, he could have just been like, what are you talking about? And get defensive like Republicans always do. They play defense. They don't want to offend anyone on the editorial boards of the New York Times. But he's just like, yeah, it's good. Sue me. What do you want me to say? Like, some of the stuff in there is good. We need conservative values put back into the government operations, into the culture at large. And you know what would have been good, Kristin Welker, even though I disavowed it, and you're asking me about it anyways? Maybe Democrats should have run on this because some of the stuff in there, and Trump will talk about this in just a second, would be good for the American people. How about that? Maybe Democrats should adopt policies that are helpful to the American people.
That they were doing, or with the men playing in women's sports. Well, if they wouldn't have done that, maybe they would have done better.
Well,
yes, a lot of voters were turned off by the stance of Democrats vis-a-vis transgender policies. Why is this controversial? Why should that be controversial? Why should that be an issue? Maybe they should have followed what Project 2025 said in that specific instance and not lost voters over this stuff.
Take me to my question. You're now giving people involved in Project 2025 prominent roles in your administration. Are you changing your mind about Project 2025? No. Is this now the policy?
No.
She can't let it go. She cannot let it go. All the Russia stuff, all the Hitler stuff, all the fascist stuff, none of that stuck. The American people didn't buy it. So now I'm going to try to come up with a new thing, Project 2025. My audience, I got a smart audience. How many of you have read the 2025 platform even? I've glanced at it. I figured out, okay, what are they talking about here? Didn't spend much time on it because, again, Trump disavowed it. He'll have his own plans. Yeah, some of the stuff in there is kind of crazy. A lot of it's really good, but they're trying to make people associate. This is what they do because they just repeat the word Project 2025, scary, bad. This is what they're doing. They want you to have this association when you hear the word Project 2025 to get triggered, to be like, oh, no, something bad is happening. Just like before with Trump, they called him a Putin puppet. They called him Hitler. They called him a racist and a white supremacist and a sexist and a misogynist and a xenophobe and a homophobe. They said it so often that when you heard the word Trump, you associated him with these bad things. So that's the game right here. That's all this is. Say Project 2025 enough. Kamala Harris kept pushing it. Welker is still pushing it, even though they lost the election, because they have to have something when Trump implements or enacts or writes legislation for some policy. They'll go back and be like, oh, look, Project 2025 said that. You said you had disavowed it, but now you're implementing it. Now you have someone in your administration that worked on that. That's all this is. This is just one big game right here.
Blueprint for the second Trump administration.
Some people, if you take a look at the group, it was hundreds of people were involved.
And again, whatever, it's my show. I'm going to comment as much as I want. Yes, that is the only correct answer. Welker, there were a lot of people that worked on that. And just because they're going to work on my administration now doesn't mean I'm endorsing or adopting all of it. Like, how stupid. Yes, there were people that share some of the same ideas that I do, and I want them in my administration. Deal with it.
And I was actually, I reprimanded the whole group. I said, you shouldn't have placed this document in front of the voters because I have nothing to do with it and I'm the one that's running. You had no right to do this where you put 1,000-page document in front, and many of those things I disagree with. Now, Many of those things I happen to agree with. Many of those things Democrats should have agreed to. And I think they would have done much better in the election because they got slaughtered.
Well, I guess people see the list. Russ Vogt, Brenda.
She's going to keep going with it. Keep going. This is a long clip. We're going to keep playing it because she won't let it go. She can't even admit, you know what, Donald Trump, you're right. The American people do agree with some of the things in Project 2025. And again, now I'm just asking rhetorically, why is this controversial? We are allowed to agree with some things and disagree with some things, point out stuff that would help this country, point out stuff that we think the country's not ready for, or we don't want. The American people voted for Donald Trump. So in large part, they agreed with some of the stuff that was written in Project 2025. This is not a controversial idea. This should not be controversial, but now she's going to run off some of the things that she's like, this is a bridge too far. Let's take a listen.
Carr, Peter Navarro, John Ratcliffe, Pete Hoekstra, Monica Crowley. And they think these are all of the people who were involved in or writing Project 2025. This must be a blueprint for work requirements, eliminating the Head Start program, criminalizing pornography. Is that what we can expect?
That all sounds good to me. Like, is she trying to run his campaign again? Like, every time they do this, I have a clip in my library somewhere. I always love to go to it. Like, they think that they are hurting Donald Trump when they say stuff like Donald Trump's going to do this. He's going to deport illegals. He's going to keep women or men out of women's bathrooms. And we're just like, are you trying to scare me or convince me to vote for this guy? Like, they are so clueless. They lack so much self-awareness. Like, yes, please. All of that. Can I have all that? That's why I voted for Donald Trump.
I don't know how they voted. I don't know. I never spoke to him actually about it. And I purposely, and I told you, normally it would be just the opposite. I'd review every page. I purposely didn't even want to see it because when somebody like you asked me a question about Project 2025, I can honestly say I've never seen it. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't read it, but I did hear some things in there that I would totally disagree with.
All right, I found the clip here. Let me pull it up. So that's him defending it again. Yes, you can defend Project 2025. Some of the stuff in there is good for the American people. And yeah, maybe Democrats, if they wanted to win the election, instead of pushing all of their toxic ideology on the country, could have endorsed some of it and said, like, you know what? This is good policy. Whoever wrote it, it's still good policy. But here's what I'm talking about when I say they create the best ads for Trump. This was before the election. Let me see if I have a timestamp from this. This came out in late June, early July of this year. And this TikToker freaks out on all the stuff Trump's going to do with Agenda 47. So they tried Agenda 47. Nobody cared. Then they came up with Project 2025. And I talk to people that I have friends. I complain about this all the time. All my friends and family members vote Democrat, hate Trump because they listen to the media. So then this person goes on a rant about, oh no, Agenda 47. And it is the greatest Trump ad possible. Like I said, these people say he's going to do X, Y, and Z. And most of America's out there saying, like, that sounds great. Where do I sign up?
The first 15 promises he has made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47. And you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking. He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states.
Update on that, by the way. Linda McMahon, I should find that clip too, was asked, what are you going to do about the Department of Education? We are moving towards, and I tweeted this as well, it looks like Trump is going to abolish the Federal Department of Education. Yes. Yes, please, to all of it. But like I said, he's going to carry out mass deportations. Sign me up. He's going to want the death penalty for human traffickers. And then this is what you need to do. You don't play defense, you play offense. Okay, blue hat person. You defend not giving the death penalty to human traffickers. You want empathy, compassion for people trafficking human young girls and women. I am not the bad guy for wanting them to get the death sentence. You are the bad guy. And then you tell me why you defend not giving them the death sentence. Absolutely insane. So 3 for 3 so far. Yes to all this. I will vote for Donald Trump if he does this.
To decide. He will put prayer back into school and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs. He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care, which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available. He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress.
And this is supposed to, again, you could point out any single one of these things like, wait a minute, where am I supposed to get outraged over this? a constitutional amendment for term limits, and we're fighting that? What? What? We should all want term limits. Even people on the left, even Democrats, just regular Americans, they're like, system seems kind of corrupt when Chuck Grassley can be 90 years old in the Senate still, or Nancy Pelosi can be barely functioning but lead the House and be 84 and insider trading, but he's going to impose term limits, and now we're supposed to not like it. Like, what is happening?
He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals. He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will...
He said he would. I think we have that clip. He said he would look at a pardon for all of them on day one. Again, folks, this is just an ad for Donald Trump. Like, where do I sign up? This sounds so good and healthy for this country.
Create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er. He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities. On day
Haven't lost me yet.
one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection.
Yes. Boy, guys, pick up the book's Paradox from Scott Horton. I am 30 pages in. It is a dense read, I will say that. He goes into the history of Russia, Ukraine, NATO. My goodness, your eyes will be opened when you see what NATO did after the collapse of the Soviet Union. You might ask yourself, NATO was around during the time of the USSR, and then the USSR ceased to exist. And why do I need NATO now? NATO had a chance to go away. We had a chance to rethink the world order, but instead they doubled down on NATO's presence. Yes, NATO needs to go. And at the very least, why shouldn't they pay their fair share? If NATO is in Europe to protect Europe, why is America paying for that? Europe, if you want protection from whatever boogeyman threat they make up nowadays, how about you protect yourselves? How about that? Why is this controversial?
He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America.
We have debunked this. I did a 2.5 hour episode on all the Trump hoaxes. I think we included the Muslim ban in that episode. Donald Trump didn't ban I don't know why we have to say this, but apparently we do. And I'll tell you why it's a good thing that he brings us back. We didn't ban Muslim travel, countries that were Muslim. It wasn't because they were Muslim. It was because they sponsored terrorism. They happen to be Muslim. But notice we left out places like Indonesia. I think Pakistan was off the list. I'd have to double check. There are a lot of predominantly Muslim countries that didn't get banned. So wouldn't you have to scratch your head and be like, it's a Muslim ban, but all these Muslims can still travel. So maybe there's something else to it.
He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities.
I love the idea of a freedom city. Why not? I don't know how that works. Bring it on. You know what? Freedom city, I love it. Is this the solution to Democrat-run cities? Like, again, sign me up. These are the best ads for Donald Trump. And again, this lunatic in the video, this blue hat, they always have the big glasses. They don't need glasses, I would guess. It's probably just fake lenses in there in the first place, but they think they're fashionable in these big glasses. They always have to push them back up on their face because they're so big they fall off their nose. You have to defend not liking this then. Like, this all sounds great. Most of the American people wanted this. That's why they voted for Donald Trump. But then flip it on them. Like, okay, defend your position. How are you opposed to this, and why is that a good thing? They can't defend any of this. All of this is not. This is good for the country. The fact that you're opposed to this tells me everything I need to know about you.
He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation, seeking to replace that with the development of a flying car. He believes that we could create a car that vertically takes off.
Why couldn't we? I guess that's my question. They want to be like, oh, Trump's so stupid. We're going to have flying cars instead. Like, why not? Well, I mean, I don't want to have... Airspace is tough to deal with. I don't trust drivers on a paved road with clear markings on where they're supposed to go and stop signs and red lights. Like, we have enough idiots out there that are on their phones. So the idea of people flying around in this unrestricted airspace and no highways or road markings or designations, like, that obviously leads to disaster, but the technology is surely there. I am fairly certain our government has levitation technology ready to go and implemented in the military in some capacity. So not far-fetched. But again, kill EV legislation. Let's just talk about that for a second. Yes, it should be killed. There should be no mandates. If you want to buy a Tesla, I think down the line, yes, that technology will probably replace fossil fuels. It will probably replace gas-powered vehicles. But guess what? We're not there yet. And at the end of the day, it is the consumer that should be able to decide. Enough of you're emitting too much CO2 from your vehicle as John Kerry and Taylor Swift fly around the world in their private jets lecturing you as they then return home to their just gigantic watered lawn mansion, consuming way more resources than you ever will in your entire lifetime. How about we just let consumers decide? If I want to spend 4 hours at a charging station on my road trip to fire up this EV, I chose to do that. If I, Todd Peterson, though, want to travel in my car and I want to spend 5 minutes at the gas station, I should be allowed to choose that. No, we don't need government mandates on any of this. Let the free market decide. It always comes back to the free market, folks. If it's healthcare, if it's vehicles, let people make decisions that are best for themselves. And you know what? Do you know where economic prosperity comes from in this country? Cheap energy. These people want you to be poor and miserable. They can't see a step ahead. They don't see where this leads. It just feels good to support Green New Deals because we're the problem in the earth. The only problem I see is the tyrants in government trying to dictate how I live my life. We're not even halfway through this video, folks. Let's continue.
He will remove all of the limits on American natural gas exports and drill baby drill for oil domestically.
Sounds great.
He will impose a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese imports.
And he's following through on that. I don't even think it's 60. Let me know in the comments. Is it 100% now? Whatever the number is, great. China, Canada, Mexico. You know what? We are done supplementing. We're done subsidizing your countries. Why should they be the benefactor in these economic deals when it's our country the president's supposed to look after? We did a tariff breakdown. We are actually going to do a deep dive in tariffs this Friday on our other podcast, Freedom from the Press, hosted on our main Rumble channel at the American Tribune. Check that out at 10 a.m. Central on Friday. Again, we're going to do a deep dive on tariffs. In the short term, I'll just give a big picture overview here. Again, this is an ad for Trump. We want tariffs back. In the short term, it will hurt prices. Yeah, if you charge someone more to bring a product into the country, you, the consumer, end up paying that price. But here's what people forget. Afterwards, after those tariffs are in place and we have a new standard, you have, again, going back to the free market, you've got businesses, people see an opportunity in the marketplace to be like, I can make that for cheaper in America. I can start a small business in America and offer this service or this product that is now more expensive when it comes over from China or from Mexico. I will make things in America. I will help the American economy. This is not just like, oh, tariffs on China and we're done. Everything's more expensive forever because people are stupid and they don't respond to the free market incentives. Absolutely not. And I don't know if the clip goes here next. Donald Trump has talked in the past about eliminating the income tax and replacing federal revenues with tariff money. And so now, and again, I doubt this clown is going to continue on that point. I don't know who's opposed to this. So let me lay this out. Let us say Donald Trump abolishes the income tax, destroys the IRS, as he should, as I hope he does. Again, Trump admin officials, if you're watching this podcast, get rid of the income tax. So what do you pay? 20% to the federal government, 25% to the federal government every year. If you make $100,000, you're writing a check. And I hate how they do taxes with withholding because you're always like, it's just $500 on this paycheck. That's not too bad. If every American had to just write one big lump sum check in April to the federal government, I guarantee they would all be on the same page as me and be tax abolitionists. But if you have $20,000 in your pocket, let's say, you make $100K, you get to save the $20,000, I would gladly pay whatever it costs for an imported product from China. Higher price for goods, fine. I just kept $20,000 right off the top of my paycheck. The money I made is the money I got to earn and keep. That is a fair trade every day of the week.
Will extend the 2017 tax cuts and drop the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. He will.
All right, I don't want to lose Justin's comment here. Justin Montgomery, thanks for tuning in over on X. That is where news happens, folks. I can't stress this enough. Go to X, create an account, become a premium subscriber, support Elon Musk and the movement over there. X is the media now. It is where breaking news happens. It is where truth happens. It is where honest reporting happens. So Justin, thanks for being on X. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for commenting. He is going to do it right. He's a businessman. He knows what he is doing. Yeah, Trump is a businessman, 100%. He knows what the tariff game is. And I like to think I'm optimistic. I mean, we have seen so many signals already with mass deportations, abolishing the Department of Education, nominating the right folks like Hegseth and Gates before Gates dropped out, now has his own show on America One American News Network, OAN. I am optimistic that we're going to get rid of the income tax. Cautiously optimistic. Justin says, I like Trump. I'm a Trump supporter. Amen, Justin. Honestly, that is the only way to be at this point. I like Trump as well. Even if you don't like Trump, how are you not a Trump supporter, though? And I'm speaking not to you, Justin. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for watching. How do you not like Trump? Again, I am playing this free ad for Donald Trump. They're like, oh, he's so scary. He's going to do this and that. And it's like, no, you should support every single thing this person is saying. Like, hold on a second. I'm not scared. I'm excited about doing all these things. You listen to the Trump interview. He has great answers. He's just a transparent human being. He has great policies for the American people. Yeah, the media lied about him. You don't like that he said women let you grab them at one point. I've talked about that a lot too. Like, that is just fact. Women do that for rich and powerful men. Justin, I'm going to keep showing your comments because I appreciate them. I like Trump way before politics. Yeah, everybody liked Donald Trump. That's the point too. Everybody liked Donald Trump before he got into politics. He was on The View. He was doing his NBC show. He was chumming it up with the Clintons at his wedding. We have all those pictures as well. Everybody liked Trump until he became a threat to the regime. I honestly don't know. How do you not like Donald Trump at this point? 48% of the country voted for Kamala Harris. And everyone on X is always like, you know that's not true, right? You know it wasn't really 48%. They always want to be like, oh, there was cheating and this and that. Maybe, probably. But you know what? I'm sticking by the 48% because even if that's not a real number, even if it was 40%, that's still alarming. 40% of the country voted for Kamala Harris. I just ask, what is wrong with you? Justin, I think we all do at this point. I won't even get into the RFK discussion. Yeah, you know what, though? The irony is, I love this tweet. I'm going to comment on it now, Jason. I'm going to probably get our YouTube channel struck down. So Justin says, I have autism. Libertarians often joke that they have the autism as well. And again, cases are prevalent. I think they say 1 in 3 kids will have autism in the next 10 years or whatever the number is. And again, we just want to figure out why. But the irony, of course, in all this is libertarians describe themselves that way. We are now at that point where more and more people have it. And the irony is that more and more people, because of that, oftentimes look around and they say, I hate government. I'm going to be a libertarian. I'm going to have these libertarian values. So it kind of backfired there. All right, let's continue.
Push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time. And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns.
This is correct as well. An armed society is a peaceful society. It is a nice society. If you knew everybody was likely strapped, would you A, try to aggress in certain situations, or would you B, tread lightly around them? And again, it's a rhetorical question. We all know the answer. An armed society is a safe society, is a peaceful society. Do you think folks like Jordan Neely would go do all these shenanigans on a subway car if they said, hey, I don't care if I go to prison. Hey, I'm going to try to off somebody today. And this Neely character knew that every single rider on that subway was armed and able to defend themselves? Again, rhetorical question.
Been passed in the last several years. He will demand that Europe pay back all the money we gave Ukraine, and then he will use all of that money to recruit for the American military. And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then,
again, this all sounds great. Harvard sitting on, what is the number? I'm going to get fact checked by YouTube for this one. Is it like $300 billion that some of these universities are sitting on in their endowments? It is tax-free. They can do whatever they want. They still get students on government loans. So they are just raking it in. It's all corrupt. And institutions like Harvard and Yale and Stanford, prestigious in name only. Like, you send your kid to a good school. The Ivy League school is the best. And they come back a brainwashed communist that is dumber than when you sent them there. So something's got to give. Yes. Tax the endowment. Tax all of it.
And he will use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent.
Great. You mean we have more alternatives in the college marketplace? Love it. Love it. That person in the blue hat must be a liberal. Yeah, the only thing I didn't say, I have never, to use the woke left's term, I've never gendered this person because I honestly don't know. I can't tell. I think that is the point of this person doing the video and presenting themselves that way. Could be a very effeminate man, could be a more masculine woman. I see the makeup, I see the eyebrows, but you can never tell anymore. So I didn't want to gender this person, misgender them, and YouTube is like, hey, that's a dude on the video. You called them a girl. So I didn't say she or him. I'm saying that facetiously. Justin's on a roll. Thank you for tuning in, Justin. Thanks for your comments. I think this people don't like Trump because he can't be controlled like a puppet. He speaks his mind. That's why I like Trump. And that goes back to my point. How do you not like Trump? Why are we reminiscing? Why are we romanticizing the past and saying, I miss the days when we had spineless rhino cowards just bend over for Democrats? Nothing good ever happened for this country, but it was peaceful because the media didn't get mad. Because the media is not going to go after Joni Ernst. They're not going to go after Mitch McConnell. They'll pretend to for a little bit, and then they'll just kind of gloss over it. I miss the days when we had John McCain and Mitt Romney and George Bush. All of these establishment Republican rhinos that don't care about you, sold out your values, campaigned on something that you wanted to hear, and then completely ignored you the rest of their time in office. Who misses that? Honestly, how do you not support Trump at this point? And again, you hear this video, you're like, I like all of that. And even if you only like 10 of the 15 things she mentioned, how many policies of Kamala Harris do you like? This is just a math problem at this point. Let's see. Donald Trump, Project 2025. The media said this for so long, so I'm a little brainwashed. I don't like Trump, but you know what? I like the idea of X, Y, and Z. And then I look at Kamala Harris, who he's running against in a binary system where you only have one of two choices. Well, I don't like anything that Kamala's offering. She wants to do price controls. So the opposite of letting the market dictate everything, I want the government to dictate everything. Mandate a higher wage that businesses can't afford. Yeah, we love small businesses back home to the country. By the way, you're going to go broke because I'm going to mandate $20 an hour on your employees that don't deserve it and you can't afford. We're going to keep the border wide open. Yes, we're going to go down to the LGBTQ path, the woke path, in hiring and in businesses and with your kids. We're going to keep funding conflicts overseas. As a Kamala voter, I'm just left wondering how are you supporting any of this? And even if you support one of those things, how do you not listen to Donald Trump's platform and you're like, well, I agree more with Trump, actually. Absolutely insane. I can't get over it. But this was a little tangent for us. I wasn't planning on playing this video, but that Welker clip brought it up. It's like, you said all this, and now I like Trump more. Like, they just can't handle it. They think it's a gotcha moment. They think this is bad. And you know what? Most of the American people are fully on board with Trump. And this is why I made a video right after the election that said why I'm optimistic. Because I don't think the corporate media landscape gets any better. I don't think they start telling the truth. I think more and more people are just done with woke causes. You're watching all these big Fortune 500 companies drop wokeism in their practices in the HR department. You're going to have Donald Trump come into office, and he's going to do all these things he promised that will materially and substantially and measurably benefit the American people. And that only means more voters are going to be like, you know what? Trump is right. The America First movement is right for me and right for this country. So then they go and vote for J.D. Vance, even though they might have not voted for Trump or a Republican before. Like, honestly, maybe you voted against Kamala Harris. But again, when you live in the country for 4 years under Donald Trump and you see the media try to attack him for making your life better, that'll just turn more and more people off of corporate media. Like, he won the election without the media doing anything for him. The media is not going to get better. So the stories and the coverage won't get better. I don't think Trump loses a single voter over the course of 4 years. And I think more Americans wake up to the lies and the hoaxes and the propaganda. So I am very optimistic about the future. Like, this is what they had. They said, this is all going to be so bad. And we'll play, maybe we should find this person and say, hey, do you want to come on the show? Why are these bad? And maybe in 4 years, it's like, well, he did it, and now life is better. So what do you have to say for yourself? All right, but we got to get back to Welker here. We're running up on our 90 minutes. Time goes fast on the podcast. Let's see what else we have for today. This is a first world problem, folks. We have too many videos downloaded on our laptop. First world problem. Let's go here.
Ask you, sir, one final question. What do you want to say to...
This is so good. Her last question gets into, and I think we have a clip of, accusing Trump of being divisive. He has a great response to that. I think we'll find it. But what do you want to say to the people that didn't vote for you? And I'm going to ask you to think about, what do you think Kamala Harris and Tim Walz would say about this? I mean, you might know they would say something fluffy and nice and just meaningless pablum, and then they'd go and enact policies that ruin your life. But take a listen to Trump right here.
Americans who didn't support you in this campaign.
I'm going to treat you every bit as well as I have treated the greatest MAGA supporters. There's never been anything like MAGA in the history of this country. These people are so dedicated to making America great again. It's very simple. And I'm going to treat them just the same as I treat MAGA. We're going to treat everybody good. We want success for our country. We want safety for our country.
This is why Donald Trump had to be president. What a powerful message. And yes, I believe it. And honestly, what could they say even if Trump wanted to go after people that didn't vote for him, how would he do that? What would that look like? It's all insane. Trump's policies will benefit everybody. Safer communities, less illegal immigration, and you can look at the cost of running government programs that support illegals or these DEI programs, make it unfair for certain people that look like me to enter the workforce in a competitive way. Trump's policies will make America better. Cost of things in the long run will go down if you have more money when the income tax is abolished or tariffs make small businesses, it gives them a larger incentives to operate within the United States, help the economy grow. Stop sending money overseas to all these conflicts where we fund both sides, essentially. Life is going to get better. If you're in a state, honestly, I could have talked about this too in a second ago when I was like, why I'm optimistic. They tried to make abortion a central tenet of the election. And honestly, I think that's kind of done. Donald Trump's not going to touch abortion for 4 years. He's already pro-IVF. And again, I've told the story before. I have people in my immediate circle that were like, well, we have to do IVF before Trump's elected because he's going to ban it. Like they believe the media lies about that. Trump is pro-IVF, pro-family. Yes, there are different conversations about IVF and people have different ideas about the morality of IVF. I'm not talking about that. He's not going to touch abortion. It's in the states. That's where it belongs. That's a done deal. And when he doesn't touch it for 4 years, they can't really fearmonger on that. If he abolishes the Department of Education, which, again, it looks very, very likely at this point, it's not like government schools go away. States have their own Department of Education, which, again, to the point of why does the federal government need a Department of Education? It doesn't. So people are going to be like, oh, no, schools are all going to be closed because there's no federal Department of Education. In 4 years, they're going to be like, my kid still goes to school. There's still a state Department of Education. I get to vote the way my state is governed. And so if you like big teacher union access, if you like all these administrators getting paid and your kid has a huge class size, well, good luck, blue state. But schools will not be shut down. So all these things they're fear-mongering on, they're going to have to realize like life is still humming along. Life is humming along the way I want it to, because I have more local control at my state and municipal level instead of some bureaucracy over in Washington, D.C. on the other side of the country trying to make policies and terms and ideas for me. So it's going to be great. It's all going to be good, folks. I am so excited for this next administration. Life is getting so much better. And Donald Trump will, through his policies, make everyone's life better. Because Donald Trump, if you voted for him or not, loves this country and cares for the people in it. So his policies will reflect that. So even if you didn't vote for him, I often say too, you're welcome. You're welcome, because I did vote for Donald Trump, who is going to enact these policies that make your life better, even though you didn't want that. I did you a solid. You didn't want your life to get better. I voted to make your life better. You're welcome. All right, I think we got one or two more clips here.
Your first interview since you won the election.
Congratulations.
Yes,
I hope
congratulations to you.
I hope you do well with it.
Yes.
Again, I think this is why he goes on these programs. I made the comment earlier. I don't want Trump giving legitimacy to corporate media. I don't want him to do these sit-down interviews. I just think Trump likes it. He is a different breed of Trump. Like, this is him in his element, where he knows he's got someone hostile on the other side. The Rogan interview, he was casual, he was meandering. Some of the stories were cute about Melania, how they met and all that. But it's just like, this is what Trump was born to do right here. And just from the get-go, he's like, yeah, good luck to you. Like, and he knows he's doing her a favor more than she's doing him a favor. He doesn't need corporate media access. She needs him to sit down to say, look at my resume now. But good luck to her, because Trump knows. Trump knows what she's going to do. We played clips of what she did. And Trump completely owns her in this debate. It is a debate. It's not journalism. It's not seeking truth.
And, sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the...
This is the clip I was looking for. I just had too many. Again, first world problems. So many clips on my laptop for my live stream here. All these technology problems. But this is where, right off the bat, she's like, we have a divided country. What are you going to do about it? Trump's response throughout this entire interview, just like everything else he has said, is perfect. Trump was ready to go.
Next 4 years, for the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that?
And again, I've already pointed out Project 2025. Make sure that's fresh in people's minds. J6, we got to talk about J6. And now she wants to bring up stolen election. Can we pin he's an election denier still, even though they denied 2016, denied 2024? Here we go. Here's Trump's response to you. What do you have to say about 2020 still? Because apparently that's a thing.
No. Why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when you say the country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No. I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president. I'm not. And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me. He went after his political opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really...
Great measured response from Donald Trump. Confident, soft-spoken. I have not been president for 4 years. Welker, if you wonder why the country is so divided, maybe take a look at the guy that you probably voted for, the man that represents your media apparatus, Dems and the corporate media, one and the same. Joe Biden, I don't have the clip here, but on multiple occasions, I have a tweet, actually, if you want to go to Todd Amtrib over on X. 4 separate clips I tweeted out of Joe Biden calling MAGA supporters domestic terrorists. And you wonder why the country is divided? You wonder why Donald Trump won this election? Let's see. You had BLM leaders in New York last night after the Daniel Penny verdict came out saying BLM needs to rise up and the black community is going to take care of itself and we're going to go do all this vigilantism, in his word, essentially threatening to hurt people because they didn't agree with the verdict. You don't think BLM running this race grift, you don't think Democrats trying to divide the country on race and sex and sexuality? Again, conservatives don't care who you go to bed with. We just don't want to care. When you introduce yourself and you say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm gay, like, we didn't care, didn't want to know, not a thing, but then they pretend like, oh, you don't support me. I mean, maybe not, but that's also not the point. Like, I just don't want to know. It's not relevant to your, if you're serving in office, to your skill set or your duties as a politician. You're a black woman, so what? You're qualified to sit on the Supreme Court now because you're a black and a woman? Like, that is irrelevant. So you talk about creating division unnecessarily, but they do it intentionally because they thrive on divide. Donald Trump, though, he's going to be a great unifier because his message, as always, is like, you're an American, I represent America, and my policies are going to be good for this country and for you. So there will be unity. There would be unity, I should say, if the media didn't exist. Without the media, without the Democrat Party, we would all be united. But I will say this on unity as well. And again, I did a follow-up episode on my podcast. You can find that over on the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Did this shortly afterwards as well, because then the left conceded and they're like, time to bring people together. And it's like, no. Number one, the only reason we're not together is because of folks like you. But number two, I don't want unity. So I'll go on my brief. I don't want unity rant right here, and then we'll close out the show. I don't want unity with them. I want them to come to the MAGA movement. Make no mistake. I want to be unified. But I don't want unity with rhinos and with Democrats. If that means we have to reach our hands across the aisle, find some middle ground and compromise, that's not how this works. The America First movement is ready for you if you come join it. We are not required. We're not responsible. It would be the wrong thing to do to concede an inch on what we stand for right now. The America First movement is here. You can come walk over here and find us. But I don't want unity if that means you get to keep believing your nonsense, keep promoting your evil. I don't want compromise with that. I don't want compromise with evil. The America First movement is where it's at. That is who won the election. You come to us. All right. And I think I got one more clip here. Yes, this is our final clip of the show.
What did they do? They deleted and destroyed.
Oh, shoot, we have like 4 clips of the same thing today. I'm sorry, folks. Let's see if we got... I think we have one more in this mess.
20 states.
We did that one too. That might be all of it. We might have... Here we go.
The reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
It's fair only in that you allowed me to say what I said.
Yeah, we played that clip too. So there it is, folks. There is the recap of Donald Trump sitting down with NBC's Kristin Welker. It is exactly what you would expect it to be. She was not in there to report. She was in there to go after Donald Trump and get her buzzwords in. So you heard it, J6. You heard Project 2025. You heard minimum wage. Like, she wanted to get all of her talking points across on what they should all be, what all the policies should be. And Trump, why do you support something that's opposed to this? So you could see her agenda very clearly in the interview, but Donald Trump did such a great job. It is worth repeating as well. Yep, he was tough on her, called her out multiple times, said you could be so much better if you weren't so partisan. Good luck to you. But soft-spoken and measured as well. This was just a man speaking with confidence. He knows he has the backing of the American people. He knows he's got the backing of goodness and justice and fairness and morality. So you don't have to yell. You don't have to scream, get in someone's face to make your point. And the criticisms of her, too. This is not Donald Trump just being mean. I would argue it is objective fact, and sometimes the truth hurts. But when he calls her a partisan hack, she is. What else are we supposed to say about that? Like, again, no unity with these people. I'm not going to just be nice to you to be nice. Like, no, Welker. The country would be in a much healthier spot if you didn't sit there and try to fact check me or set up the premise of a question in just kind of deceitful way. But folks, if you want to do a 90 minutes, it's entertaining. It's very instructional, very informative. You can find the full clips circulating the internet. These were just a few snippets. We left out the part where he was going to pardon J6ers. I think that's happening. There are so many things that are happening right now because Donald Trump has won that will make this country great again. But I think we're going to wrap there. I was just looking for a few more clips. Yeah, I think we finished up all our clips. But we're going to do it here, folks. That's going to be it for us at the American Tribune Live. I appreciate you tuning in. Justin, I appreciate you watching and commenting. We're over on YouTube, X. We're over on Rumble. If you like the show, you're watching on X, you're watching on YouTube, hop over to Rumble. You can find us at the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. It's a new program, new channel, not as many followers as our main channel, the American Tribune. If you want to hear more from me, you can check out my daily commentary. We drop like 10 videos a day, just commenting on just easier news to stomach. So I offer some commentary on some news videos circulating around that you can find on CNN or things that get uploaded to X. So that's the American Tribune. But our Rumble channel here, where we go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 Central, that is the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. But folks, you got a lot of options out there, where to get news from, where to get just podcast commentary from. There's lots of stuff out there saying like, there's too many podcasts. But you know what? Choice is good. And if you chose this program today or you choose this program in the future, thank you, because you have so many options. You chose to listen to me today, watch us today, have some laughs as we go through Donald Trump's insane interview with Kristin Welker. So I appreciate you tuning in, appreciate you watching the show, appreciate you supporting the show. If you've got friends and family members that vote Democrat, that voted for Kamala Harris, we're not mean over here. We expose the media for lying. We expose the absurdity of what the Democrat Party represents at this point. It could be informative for them. It could be instructional for them to maybe expand their worldview and break out of that insane bubble echo chamber that they currently reside in. So share the content with them. Tell them Todd sent you. We will welcome them. Again, the MAGA Party has room for all Americans. It is my goal, my dream, that we all identify as America first. I want everybody to support Donald Trump's policies. I want everyone to admit that the media lies to them, and they're lying to you right now when they're trying to walk it back and say, we're going to cover Donald Trump more fairly. You know, they've never apologized for the lies they said. So they're going to try to present a new face, like, you can trust us now. That's just as much misinformation as what they were spreading before, because they're lying to you about trying to be honest. But that's going to do it for us today here, folks. Again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back Thursday, 9:30 Central, live over here on Rumble at the American Tribune Live. See you then.